It is wild to think about, but a missed 2-foot putt on a Sunday afternoon in Florida can now actively alter the valuation of a billion-dollar broadcast deal in Tokyo.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like an exaggeration, but it's really not.
Right. Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're unpacking something super fascinating. It's a highly confidential corporate blueprint that basically proves modern professional golf is no longer just this polite weekend sport.
No, not at all. It is a highly volatile, 24/7 global financial market.
Exactly. And the source material we got our hands on today is just, well, it's incredibly revealing.
It really is. It reads way less like a traditional sports summary and much more like a mandate for a global intelligence briefing.
Yeah, a strict blueprint.
Right. The document outlines these very rigid requirements for what they call a weekly global golf report. And the thing must be researched, synthesized, and sitting in an executive's inbox by exactly 6 o'clock in the morning, Central European time.
Every single Monday.
Every single Monday, without fail.
Which is just crazy. I mean, if you're listening to this and wondering why on earth someone needs a golf report before the sun even comes up on a Monday, you really have to look at the gatekeepers of the sport.
Yeah, the audience for this is key.
Right, because this mandate explicitly states that the final product isn't for a casual fan who's just, checking Sunday scores.
Definitely not. It's engineered for a golf-savvy audience, people reading on LinkedIn, industry newsletters, corporate press releases.
It's the ultimate insider's cheat sheet.
That's a great way to put it. And by reverse engineering the demands of this required report, we can actually map out the incredibly complex, intensely fragmented landscape of the industry today.
Yeah, because to understand what this executive is demanding, we have to understand the sheer chaos they are trying to organize.
Chaos is the right word. I mean, let's look at the geographical and demographic spread the author's required to track here.
Oh, the list is massive. The mandate demands coverage of Levy Golf, the PGA Tour, the LPGA Tour, the various seniors tours across Europe and America.
The Challenge Tour, too.
Right, the Challenge Tour. Plus all the regional circuits. So you've got South African Tour, the Australian Tour, the Japanese Tour, and the Asian Tour.
It's exhausting just listing them.
It really is. And if you follow golf, you know these names. But what really jumps out here is the mandate to monitor all of them simultaneously.
In one single snapshot.
Exactly. Just to establish a baseline of what is, quote unquote, happening in the sport. It's like trying to run air traffic control for a dozen busy international airports all at exactly the same time.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right.
And the necessity of that simultaneous tracking reveals a massive structural shift in the game.
Yeah.
Power and relevance are no longer consolidated.
Right. There isn't just one headquarters anymore.
Exactly. 10 years ago, an executive could just watch the PGA Tour and the European Tour, and they basically had the entire market covered.
Yeah, it felt like there was just one main highway to watch.
But today, the ecosystem is entirely decentralized.
The traditional centers of gravity have just completely fractured. You're monitoring this sprawling, overlapping global web of side streets and alternate routes.
Right, and think about the strategic value of those alternate routes now. Take the Asian Tour, for example.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge one.
The mandate requires updates there specifically because Levy Golf poured hundreds of millions of dollars into the Asian Tour recently.
And they obviously didn't do that out of charity.
No, of course not. They did it to create an alternative pathway for their players to earn world ranking points. They're effectively trying to bypass the traditional monopolies.
So tracking the Asian Tour isn't just for regional fans anymore.
Not at all. It is tracking a strategic flank maneuver in a global corporate proxy war.
Wow. So the executive reading this report at 6 in the morning isn't just checking who won a trophy in Singapore.
Right. They are checking to see if a massive financial investment is actually yielding strategic territory.
That makes so much sense. Which I guess brings us to the multiple tiers of development the report insists on covering.
Yeah, the demographics and the development leaks.
Because they're tracking the Challenge Tour, which is essentially the minor leagues in Europe, plus the various seniors tours alongside the top-tier men's and women's events.
Meaning you are constantly scanning the entire life cycle of the athletic talent.
You're looking at the aging assets, the prime assets, and the research and development pipeline all at once.
Exactly. But the problem, and the reason for that intense Monday morning deadline, is that those assets refuse to stay put.
The borders between these global tours are incredibly volatile right now.
Very volatile. The document doesn't ask for a polite summary of the weekend. It demands hard intelligence on major player movements.
Right. It specifically highlights the ongoing turf war between the PGA Tour and Livy Golf.
Because that talent tug-of-war is basically the defining feature of the modern game right now. The mandate wants immediate updates on players transferring allegiances.
But it goes deeper than just who went where.
Oh, much deeper. It digs into the mechanics of why those movements matter. It requires constant tracking of the official world golf ranking.
The OWGR.
Right, the OWGR, and the ongoing crisis regarding Levy Golf's eligibility for those ranking points.
Okay, here is where I think the mechanics of the sport get incredibly messy, because the report asks for updates on potential tour alliances, corporate mergers, and these high-level global tour unification concepts.
Right, the big boardroom deals.
Yeah, but at the exact same time, it demands updates on the bitter, ongoing disputes over those ranking points.
It's a huge contradiction.
It really is. So while the CEOs are in a boardroom shaking hands over a unified future, the players out on the grass are in this mathematical freefall because the current algorithms don't recognize their new league.
Exactly.
So my question is, if they're talking about merging and unifying, why is the fight over points still a massive crisis? Wouldn't a merger solve that immediately?
You would think so. But it all comes down to leverage. The OWGR algorithm is essentially a massive mathematical equation designed over decades to measure one specific thing:
Which is?
statistical probability against a standardized field. To do that accurately, the formula relies heavily on 72-hole tournaments that feature a cut line after 36 holes.
Okay, right. The cut line enforces a performance baseline.
Exactly. It weeds out the variables and ensures that only the players who are playing the best that specific week actually make it to the weekend.
So what happens when Levy comes in?
Well, Levy introduces a 54-hole format with no cuts and guaranteed payouts, and the math just breaks down.
The algorithm literally cannot compute it.
Right. It can't compute their value in the same ecosystem. A shorter tournament allows for hotter, high-variance streaks to win out over consistent baseline talent.
Ah, I see.
So the OWGR board, which, by the way, is largely controlled by the traditional powers of the sport, refuses to award them points.
Because it's an apples to oranges comparison. And if the players don't get those points, their world ranking just plummets.
Exactly. It drops them out of the top 50.
Which locks them out of the major championships. The Masters, the U.S. Open, the British Open.
And the majors transcend the individual tours. They are the holy grail of the sport.
So by freezing players out mathematically, the traditional tours maintain massive leverage in those high-level unification talks we were just talking about.
Exactly. The 6 a.m. blueprint proves that tracking this political chessboard, the eligibility disputes and the algorithm debates, is now just as critical as tracking a final score.
But those eligibility disputes aren't just about prestige, right? Like, it's not just about wanting your name on a silver trophy.
It's financial, completely.
Because when a top-tier player suddenly vanishes from the OWGR top 50 and misses the Masters, their global screen time evaporates.
And that sudden loss of visibility directly threatens the one thing keeping all these fragmented tours afloat.
The corporate sponsors.
Exactly. Which pushes us right into the strict business intelligence this report demands.
Right. The commercial realities dictate every single move on that chessboard. The author is required to include key sponsor announcements or any changes that could influence the, quote, financial ecosystem or visibility of the tours.
The mandate specifically lists equipment innovations, broadcast rights changes, and strategic partnerships.
Reading this section of the instructions, it feels like following golf today requires the exact same skill set as analyzing Wall Street and Silicon Valley at the same time.
It really does.
The golf clubs are essentially equipment innovations, and the networks broadcasting the tournaments are listed as strategic partnerships.
Right. Think of broadcast rights as the municipal water supply for the entire sport.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, so the PGA Tour, Livy Golf, the European Tour, they're essentially building these massive competing reservoirs.
Okay.
But if tournament lacks star power, or if the format isn't compelling, fans tune out. And when the viewership drops, the pipes dry up.
And when the pipes dry up, the prize purses shrink. And the players, who are basically the water in this analogy, flow to whoever has the deepest well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is the fragile loop of the financial ecosystem. The broadcast rights pay for the massive purses. The purses attract the top players.
And the top players attract the premium sponsors.
Right. And then those sponsors buy the ad inventory from the broadcasters to keep the whole machine running.
So for the golf-savvy insider reading this report, a major corporate sponsor changing hands or a new broadcast partnership being signed in Asia is fundamental competitive intelligence.
Absolutely. Take the requirement to track equipment innovations, for example.
Yeah, because at first glance, a player switching the brand of driver they use seems like a super minor gear update.
Right, just a guy getting a new club. But in this ecosystem, it is a major financial indicator.
How so?
Well, if a top 10 player leaves a legacy equipment manufacturer for a new startup brand,
Yeah.
that shifts millions of dollars in marketing spend. And it alters the player's potential performance trajectory, which then alters their ranking, which impacts their tour's overall marketability.
You pull on one string, and the whole global web vibrates.
Every single business maneuver creates an invisible current. And that current drives the very player movements the report was tracking in the previous section.
It is an incredibly dense corporate structure, but, despite this heavy focus on global boardrooms, multi-million-dollar transfer fees, and broadcast monopolies, the blueprint proves something really grounding, I think.
Oh, definitely.
The lifeblood of the sport, the actual fuel that makes this multi-billion-dollar machinery run, is still human drama and grassroots talent.
You cannot separate the boardroom from the grass.
Sure.
The text of the mandate is very explicit about not losing sight of the actual people holding the clubs.
Yeah, the instructions demand that the author track withdrawals, returns from injury, and retirements.
And it explicitly requires updates on significant amateur tournaments, rising talents, and results from major junior or college events.
And then it completely pivots. It demands coverage of any newsworthy controversies or standout performances, including record-breaking rounds, playoff dramas, or sudden rule violations.
Which is fascinating because this section reveals how value is actually generated in modern sports media.
It's just such a wild juxtaposition to me.
How do you mean?
Well, the exact same Monday morning report that's meticulously analyzing billion-dollar global tour unification concepts also demands the gritty, emotionally charged details of a sudden rule violation or who won a college tournament in the Midwest.
It seems like a tonal shift, for sure. But consider the life cycle of an asset in this environment. The mandate treats college results and amateur tournaments like a venture capitalist treats a tech incubator.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. 5 or 10 years ago, a great college player simply graduated, went to qualifying school, and worked their way up the traditional ranks.
They waited in line.
They waited in line. But today, they don't wait.
Because of the fragmentation we discussed earlier.
Exactly. Those top college athletes are now the subjects of multi-million-dollar bidding wars between competing tours before they even pack up their dorm rooms.
So tracking college events is tracking the unallocated future assets of the financial ecosystem.
Yes. You have to know who the next superstar is so you know which tour is about to gain a massive demographic advantage.
So they are tracking the commodity before it ever hits the open market.
Exactly.
Okay, so that explains the amateurs. But what about the mandate to track sudden rule violations or playoff dramas? A two-stroke penalty for accidentally touching the sand in a bunker feels so incredibly microscopic compared to a massive broadcast rights deal.
It feels microscopic until you map out the chain reaction of human drama.
Chain reaction.
Yeah. A sudden rule violation or a controversial penalty creates a viral moment. That controversy sparks debate across social media, sports talk radio, everywhere.
Right.
And that debate drives higher tune-in rates for the final round on Sunday.
Because everyone wants to see how the controversy resolves under pressure.
Exactly. That sudden spike in Sunday viewership gives the broadcast partner the leverage they need to charge higher advertising rates.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah. And that allows the tour to command higher fees for the next media rights cycle, which trickles down to larger prize purses to retain the players.
The water in the pipes.
The water in the pipes, the human drama, the petty controversies, the incredible comeback stories, those are the actual engagement metrics that keep the water flowing.
So when a player misses that 2-foot putt we talked about at the very beginning of the show, it's not just a bad day for their scorecard?
No, it is a vital data point in a global financial intelligence briefing.
That is wild. And the report has to conclude with a preview of the upcoming week, right? Like featured groups, broadcast times, expected storylines.
Yeah, the author is essentially preparing the executive reader to understand exactly where the value is going to be generated, challenged, or lost in the next 7 days.
We have covered a massive amount of ground here today, just tracing the exact path of this intelligence gathering operation.
We really have.
By decoding this strict mandate for a Monday morning report, we've basically stripped away the polite country club veneer of professional golf.
Yeah, what's left is a highly volatile, deeply interconnected, 24/7 global industry.
And I think the real value for you listening to this breakdown is the framework it provides.
Definitely. The next time you are scrolling through industry news or see a headline about a tournament halfway across the world, you won't just see a final score.
You will understand the mechanisms at play.
You'll see how a sudden rule violation drives engagement, how a 54-hole format breaks a mathematical ranking algorithm, and how a college amateur winning a tournament immediately shifts the leverage in a boardroom unification meeting.
You'll essentially be reading the game just like the executive waiting for that email at 6 in the morning.
Exactly.
But I want to leave you with a final thought today, a deeper question that this entire corporate blueprint forces us to confront.
Let's hear it.
Well, if a sport requires this exhaustive, relentless, multi-layered level of data synthesis just to keep a professional audience adequately informed about the basic landscape of the game,
Yeah.
are we approaching a point where the off-course business maneuvering permanently eclipses the on-course product?
Oh, that's a great question.
When that 5:45 a.m. alarm goes off next Monday, are we waking up to report on an athletic competition, or are we simply tracking a corporate proxy war played on grass? It's definitely something to mull over the next time you watch a player step up to the tee.